Now, Israeli authorities have released 90 Palestinian prisoners as part of the hostages for prisoners swap deal between Israel and Hamas. The release of these prisoners was in exchange for the return of 3 Israeli hostages on Sunday, the first of the 33 Israeli hostages due to be freed from Gaza under Phase 1 of the deal. Now, hundreds of people cheered, chanted, and honked car horns as 2 buses arrived in the West Bank town of Betunia. Images show members of crowds climbing atop the lead bus and unfurled a Hamas flag. They were joined by others waving the flags of Fatah, Islamic Jihad, and several other Palestinian factions, as well as the Palestinian national flag. Earlier, the buses carrying freed Palestinian prisoners departed the Israeli military prison Ofer near Ramallah in the Israeli-occupied part of West Bank early on Monday. According to Hamas, those freed from Israeli prisons included 69 women and 21 minors from the West Bank and Jerusalem.
I left hell and now I'm in heaven. We are out of hell. They used to violate us, beat us, fire tear gas towards us. They used to count us while our heads were down on the floor. Suddenly they would enter the cells and fire gas toward us. They say bad words at us. There's no food, no sweets, no salt, there's nothing.
The prisoner release, the first in the war since November 2023, followed the freeing of 3 women hostages by Hamas: Emily Damari, Romi Gonen, and Doron Steinbrecher. They were handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza on Sunday afternoon. They were later flown to a hospital in Tel Aviv in a helicopter where they had a tearful reunion with their families. Israel named 737 prisoners who are to be released over the first phase of the deal in exchange for 33 Israeli hostages. More than 230 of them are expected to be exiled immediately upon their release. The agreement was negotiated with the mediation of Qatar, Egypt, and the United States, aiming to end more than 15 months of war in the Gaza Strip. The incoming U.S. President Donald Trump hailed ceasefire agreement as first step towards lasting peace in West Asia. He also claimed that the agreement only happened as a result of his presidential victory in November.
Perhaps most beautiful of all, this week we achieved an epic ceasefire agreement as a first step toward lasting peace in the Middle East. And this agreement could only have happened as a result of our historic victory in November.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has said that it was ready to pour much-needed aid into Gaza, but that it would need systematic access across the territory to do so. Much of the Gaza Strip's health infrastructure has been destroyed. It also estimated the cost of rebuilding Gaza's battered health system will require more than $10 billion. 8 trucks continue to move into Gaza via Egypt's Rafah crossing. The deal requires 600 truckloads of aid to be allowed into Gaza every day of the initial 6-week ceasefire, including 50 carrying fuel. Half of the 608 trucks will be delivered to Gaza's north, where experts have warned famine is imminent. The World Food Program has said that it was moving full throttle to get food to as many Gazans as possible. And to discuss more, we're now being joined by Jonathan Flower from Amman in Jordan. He is the Senior Communications Manager at UNRWA. Now, thank you so much for joining us as of now. If you could bring us the details and, of course, the latest of how the humanitarian situation is in Gaza right now.
Well, obviously the ceasefire, and we have to hope that the ceasefire holds, of course, but that is just the first step towards alleviating the absolutely desperate humanitarian situation. What I can say, of course, is that aid has begun to move into the Gaza Strip, and commercial supplies indeed, because let's not forget that the markets also need to recover. This cannot be done by humanitarians alone. We've had a relatively smooth flow of supply, and colleagues on the ground are reporting to me that they now have the sound of children playing rather than bombardments and airstrikes, which is absolutely critical when you consider that after close to 15 months, everybody's lives and the sound has been punctured by bombardment and strikes. We have to hope that the ceasefire holds, that all the elements of the agreement be implemented, because this is just a stepping stone in the right direction. But the humanitarian situation won't be ended overnight, of course. I mean, that now has to be, we have to have a massive scale up of humanitarian aid as much as possible with all the right conditions, the quantities, the security, the safety, the ability to distribute wherever we need to distribute in order to deal with this absolutely desperate humanitarian situation.
Absolutely. Now, UNRWA, you are the senior communications manager at UNRWA. How has UNRWA been able to communicate and also work in to get the aid across?
Well, the specificity of UNRWA is that we were before the war already the largest humanitarian agency on the ground. So, I mean, we have thousands of very seasoned aid workers, local staff, part of their communities in the Gaza Strip. They're on the ground. As it stands, what we are doing is we're standing ready to distribute aid. We also have aid waiting at the border. I don't have precise details now because, of course, the situation is moving by the hour, if not by the minute. But as it stands, you know, we're getting aid across with partners from the United Nations system. The key thing, of course, is that getting stuff across the border into the Gaza Strip is just the first part of the puzzle, if you like, the first piece of the puzzle. Actually offloading it into other trucks and then distributing it around the Gaza Strip, that's really what's essential. But we have thousands of people on the ground, approximately 5,000 of our staff who are still operational, which is by far the biggest operation of any part of the UN. And I do want to point out that we tragically, over 265 of our staff have been killed since the beginning of this war in the Gaza Strip, which is also a figure without precedent in the history of the United Nations with the death of United Nations staff. So our staff remain stoic. Of course, they've been displaced from their homes like other members of the community, and they are continuing to work, and they really are rolling up their sleeves now to do what they can to maximize this aid operation.
All right. And of course, before I let you go, of course, that's the time we have. But how positive are you regarding the second phase, considering how the first phase has been going?
Well, we absolutely have to hope that all the phases be implemented, that the ceasefire be implemented fully. I do want to just point out one thing, which is at the end of this month, there is scheduled to come into force Israeli legislation actually restricting the operations of UNRWA and restricting contacts between UNRWA officials and Israeli officials. Now, this is a big problem because there's a risk, of course, that as we're the largest agency on the ground, if this prevents us from being fully operational, then even if, as we hope, the ceasefire is fully implemented, we may not be in a position to do everything we absolutely can. So everything, all the pieces have to get in the right place, and we would appeal to the Israeli authorities to rescind this impending ban.
All right. Well, of course, we'll be looking at how, and of course, hoping that this does go into the second and, of course, the third phase, and we look for a solution as soon as possible. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us all the details. Mr. Jonathan Flower, joining us from Oman. Thank you so much.
Thank you.